The next item on this agenda are two more project presentations, and these are projects that has just recently been started. And the first one is on city change, and it relates actually to the debate that we just had. And I ask Daniel Koch and Tom Benson to enter the stage again. Thank you.
Thank you. So, city change, what is this project about? In a very simple kind of way of framing it, it's about what is the impact of urban interventions on the built environment? That's what we're asking. And we are asking that in relation to when we construct things in the city, they are not isolated projects just living on their own. They have effects on their surroundings, and that's what we are looking at. Demographic effects, price effects on housing prices, physical development that happen around as a result, and other types of effects that it can have spreading through the urban fabric. We're looking at what kind of architectural factors or what kind of projects have what kind of change in this sense, and also, of course, how it spreads in relation to how urbanity is structured. When talking about this, it's easy to sort of fall back to these kinds of projects, the big projects centrally in the city, like this tower, or the big reconstruction of Slussen, or since we're looking at change over time, maybe big projects 10 years ago, either commercially or culturally important buildings and so on. And of course, that's part of the study, but it's important to then also say that, of course, looking at smaller projects, residential areas, maybe in a bit further out from the city in different kinds of sizes and of different kinds, located, but also small projects like small schools located in more peripheral areas in different ways, or very particular projects, or for that matter, interventions that has to do with parks and so on. So to really get the different kind of palettes of different things that the city is doing, seeing what that's doing not only in itself, but with and to its surroundings, and understanding this both in sort of, let's say, positive and negative possibilities or risks of effects and so on. And we're doing this in two parallel studies using slightly different methods and slightly different data that we then sort of pack into one at the end.
Thank you very much. So as Daniel just shared, a tremendous amount of money, resources and time are put into these new urban interventions. However, the afterlife of these projects has never really been measured. We still see citizens at their local planning office alarmed by new construction. So in this study, we aim to use artificial intelligence and big data to reveal varying patterns of influence on projects around the surrounding environment. So the three key objectives that we have are to, oops, I was actually on the wrong slide. The three key objectives that we have are to understand the impact on property prices. And why is this important? If we can increase property prices, we can increase customer spending and also increase economic growth across the city. We also want to understand what is the impact on the visual features. What features can we see that change throughout the city? And this is important because if we can actually create more beautiful cities, we can attract new residents, more tourism, and more businesses as well. And the last key objective that we have is to understand in very fine detail what is the impact on local businesses. Are local businesses opening up near these interventions? Is revenue, profit, number of employees also increasing to actually have more job opportunities for the citizens of Stockholm? Thank you.
And of course, how this spreads is something that we need to look at compared to some kind of baseline of no change. What does happen compared to if we don't change anything and so on. And then following that up through different kinds of data, we will be using different data, like I said. We carefully making sure that we're using aggregate data in many ways so that we are taking care of the integrity challenges involved when doing this kind of study. But also looking at how, for instance, now we're comparing from earlier research, just a comparison of population change in areas compared to price change in areas, and see that there are relations between these two, but it's not a given sort of local exact correlation in that sense. It could have to do with different types of centrality, or places that are more central. Do they have more impact than others, and of what kind of centrality? This could be a map comparing, for instance, for those of you who live in Stockholm, on one side we could have Gamla stan and Skeppsholmen, which are just as much in the middle of Stockholm from a geographical point of view, but in lived centrality, they're very, very different. It could also be that it spreads birds' flight distance, or it spreads meters along streets, or number of turns around corners and so on, just to understand how does actually urban structure affect this? Does it follow streets? Does it follow how birds would fly? Does it move along like orientation? And it could be different for different factors, and this is something we will also be looking at. So to reiterate, this is what we're looking at. If we drop down a project, how does it spread? What does it do to its environment? And how does that interact? And to say that this is, of course, to help the city to become more precise in what you try to do with projects. But of course, also to say that these changes can be good and bad. They can be big and small, have wide and narrow effects. But that could also be for different actors. We need to also look at, are these changes good, then for whom? Or are they bad, then for whom? So both a sort of projective understanding of what might happen, but also a critical tool in terms of what are the risks here? What are the unwanted possibilities that could happen? So a dual project in that way. Thank you.
Thank you.